Okay, so today I wanted to talk about um, some of the reasons why. Uh, I almost want to answer two questions. And that's why racist white people are racist against black people, but also more importantly, why they don't want to uh, essentially fix poverty in black communities. So, one of the things that I've noticed in among racist white people, is that they oftentimes blame black people for their own place in society. So black people are disproportionately uh, impoverished compared to white people, and they want to blame black people for this this fact that black people are they themselves responsible for the fact that they are disproportionately poor. Now, whether or not they genuinely believe this or not um, might vary, and I'd say there's a pretty good chance that they genuinely do believe this um, on the broad scale, meaning that they aren't actually lying in that belief. Now, it's not a true belief. However, they may very well believe it. However, the other thing, though, is that it's contrasted with the fact that they have no interest whatsoever in changing any of that. So even though they, on on a level, believe black people are in fact responsible for black people being disproportionately poor compared to white people, they have zero interest in changing this, meaning they don't want black people to be rich or educated. So that's the other thing that goes along with everything that we're talking about here is education levels. So of course, with wealth comes greater quality education. So the question is, do they want to change this? And the answer is no. So why don't they want to change this? That's the question I want to address. So there might be like two or three, I should say three or maybe more, like major reasons for why this is. Um, and these reasons may not be shared among all races, however. Okay, so let's just get right into it. The main reason, so like when you look at racist white people, most racist white people are poor and uneducated. So they actually mirror a lot of the stereotypes that they project onto black people. And they they themselves are poor and uneducated. And they realize this. They are self-aware. They know where their place in society is, which is at the bottom. Now, even though they are fully aware of this fact, they do not want to allow black people to become rich or educated because that makes them feel even poorer and dumber. You know, the fact that they are poor and dumb is bad enough as it is. They, however, do not want black people to improve in status because that makes them feel even worse. So America has a racial hierarchy where white people are at the top of the racial food chain, so to speak, whereas black people are at the bottom rungs of it. They're at the absolute bottom of it. And this was done by design. This was done intentionally by racist white people. And the poorest of white people feel inferior. But knowing that they are white makes them feel superior. It's an artificial inflation of their place and whether or not they actually are superior, which they aren't. But knowing that they are higher on a social hierarchy makes them feel less crappy. It makes them feel less worse because They are inferior. So that's why they don't want to change it. They don't want black people to become uh, richer or smarter, more educated, because that's going to make them feel even poorer and dumber. So that's one aspect to it, and that's a major aspect that drives racism among poor whites. So then there's other considerations. There's also a great amount of fear among racist whites, and this fear relates to retaliation. So they are afraid of black people gaining power, whether it's political power or economic power or power in just being smart, being educated. When you're smart, you're dangerous. And they know this. Um, so there's a genuine fear that if black people become too smart, too rich, too powerful, it is going to undermine white superiority and supremacy of America. And they do not want to change the status quo. They do not want America to transition from a white nationalist state to a black nationalist state, which is what they fear. It's not necessarily what's going to happen, though, right? But even if we take, say, that America is going to transition from a white dominated state to one that's now more racially diverse, they don't want to give up any of that. They don't want to give up any power because that's going to undermine their interests, because their interests rely on the exploitation of minorities, racial minorities, for white people's benefit. Okay, so that's a critical issue, crucial issue. There's a lot of fear of, hey, what happens if too many black people gain political clout and power? You saw what happened when Obama became president. Obama was, just a career politician. If he were white, you wouldn't be able to tell him apart from any other white politician because he governed like any other white politician. However, the fact that he was black instilled an unbelievable amount of fear and insecurity among whites. And in fact, there are studies that prove this, that when non-whites become more educated or um, have more money or more political influence, that makes them feel emotions of insecurity. So that's the second big reason. A third big reason is that they want to keep black people perpetually in a state of constant, like they want them to constantly be involved in the criminal justice system, right? So they don't want they, and the reason is because of exploitation of prison labor, which is kind of like the modern form of slave labor. So this is mostly it's not useful to all white people, but it is useful to specific white people who have an invested interest in in the utilization of prison labor for the purposes um, of extracting cheap labor. Um, and so the prison force, the war on drugs was a crucial element to uh, inflating the prison population with a glut of cheap labor that could then be exploited. One second. Okay. Yeah, that could then be exploited by these unscrupulous individuals for their own benefit. Okay, so if black people then uplift themselves out of poverty um, and become well educated and no longer perpetually involved in the criminal justice system, then these unscrupulous individuals lose um, all of that. They lose all of a second. They lose all um, of that cheap labor, right? So they stand to lose greatly by black people um, not being uh, poor and being well educated. So that's the third and final major reason why racist white people do not want to help black communities in any way, and um, and that's why they oppose any kind of corrective measure, any kind of corrective measure on the systemic level to uplift black people out of the rut that racist white people put them in. And so yeah, that's just some thoughts that I wanted to share, to kind of like summarize everything. It wasn't the most well organized thing, but I just wanted to kind of cover and hit some of the major points. So that's it. Have a good day.